All right, guys, I just got back from watching Terminator Genesis. Was very excited to see this movie. Had heard from people that it was getting negative reviews, but I don't like reading reviews before I go see a movie 'cause I don't need to have my mind messed with. But boy, this movie messed with my mind. So I'm going to give you my review of Terminator Genesis. Now, I'm not going to go into spoilers off the hop. I'm going to talk about just some basic stuff here and then do spoilers at the end or near the end of the video. So right now, non-spoiler review. I really enjoyed this film. If you're a fan of the franchise, if you love the franchise, the first two films especially, you definitely want to go out of your way to see this movie. There are some things that I did not like about the film, some confusing things, which I'm not going to get into. Time travel, here's the way I recommend it, guys. When you're watching a time travel story, whether it be Back to the Future, whether it be Terminator, whether it be Dragon Ball Z, it doesn't matter. Whenever you see time travel, you want to kind of shut your brain off, or at least, not really think too hard, because time travel legitimately makes no sense. And even though the different Terminator movies have different aspects of time travel visited, the first one changed it from the second one, from the third one. This one's kind of very confusing, and there were a lot of unanswered questions. That's not a good thing. However, the film itself is a fun movie. I really like how they threw in some twists that did make sense. The time travel made sense, but it didn't really make sense. But maybe in the sequel, if the movie is successful and they make a sequel, I believe they're going to make two more, then there is a chance for it to be better. Arnold was awesome in this movie. He didn't get to do too much, but he was great with the stuff that he got to do. And it's really great what happens to the character near the end. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but it's fantastic. So I recommend going to see the movie. I think it is better than 3 and 4. I think that if you rank them, I think that 1 and 2 are tied, because I love 1. 1's very underrated, and I love 2. I love both those films a lot. This one's right behind it, and it did honor the series tremendously. There were tons of homages to different scenes from 1 and 2, even some of the ones that you wouldn't even understand. In fact, the entire first act of this movie is almost a shot-by-shot remake of Terminator 1, including some extra stuff from the future. All the future stuff was great. The HKs were there. The battle scenes were a lot of fun. Good stuff, really good stuff. I was very happy walking out of this movie. I had a great time, great action movie. Check it out. Like I said, if you're a fan of the series, there's a very good chance that you will like that. There are a couple of scenes, like I said, that aren't really shot too well, and there are a couple of moments that I feel kind of changed the series, not for the better, in that they broke one of the cardinal rules that was established in the first film. However, they did somewhat explain it. However, there are still some unanswered questions, which I'm going to get to probably in a future video, which we'll talk a little bit more in depth. Once everybody has seen the movie, I kind of want to come back and do like kind of a revisit with maybe Mike from Laughing Stock or somebody like that. There's a lot of things that kind of rack my brain about this. But let's talk about some spoilers here, all right? I'm not going to go through the entire film, but we're going to talk about some spoiler stuff. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, pause the video, come back and watch the rest after you've seen the movie. But again, final review for non-spoilers. Go see the film. Some negatives real quick is that I don't feel that Jason Clarke was a good John Connor. I think he's actually not a very good John Connor, but he did a fine job in this movie. Emilia Clarke was incredibly fucking sexy, and the way they shot her, and the cleavage shots, it was meant to turn you on. Jay Courtney did fine, but he is no Kyle Reese. Michael Biehn has so much charisma that Jay Courtney couldn't fuck with him. And J.K. Simmons is in this movie, and I was very happy to see J.K. Simmons here because he's been blowing up lately, doing some great work. And, of course, Arnold was Arnold. So that's it for the non-spoiler portion. Let's get to some spoilers. Of course, this is for most of you who have already seen the movie. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So the movie starts out in the future, just like all the other ones. John Connor wins the war, just like we've always known. They go to the time displacement equipment. We finally see the time machine, which they haven't actually shown us in any of the previous 4 movies. Now we finally see it. Oh, and one thing I did want to mention is that this movie erases 3 and 4 from continuity. 3 and 4 never happened. So now it's kind of like what Bryan Singer did with Superman Returns. Now it's 1, 2, and then this one. But it's up to you. Everybody makes up their own canon. Remember, I've said that a million times in my videos. Anyway, so John Connor, Kyle Reese, they win the war. The Terminator gets sent back in time right before they blew the place, just like in Terminator 1, just like what Kyle Reese said in that movie. Kyle Reese volunteers. He goes back in time. John Connor knows that Kyle Reese is supposed to go back in time. He knows it. Goes back to 1984. We go back to 84. We see the same exact scene that we saw where the Terminator shows up. They even had the black guy with the cigar. What the hell? They had him in there. And they had the old man who Kyle Reese took his pants from. It was a new actor, of course, but they redid the scene, which is kind of cool. And they had those three punks. Unfortunately, Bill Paxton did not come back to reprise that role, but hey, you can't win them all. So the T-800, the original one, Cyberdyne Systems Model 101, a young Arnold, and they did a great job of covering up this. It was basically a bodybuilder whose name is Brett Azar. He was the young Arnold in the movie, and they had Arnold's face CGI put on there. Then old Arnold shows up, and young Arnold and old Arnold get into a fight. So you're already confused, like, what's going on here? Now, in the future, Kyle Reese is being sent back in time, but right before he gets sent back in time, somebody grabs John Connor from behind. Some machine grabs him from behind and says, you didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you? And then all of a sudden, Kyle Reese's memories start getting jacked up, and he starts to remember his younger self telling him, Genesis is Skynet. Stop Genesis. So everything's getting all fucked up. So he goes back in time, and they're doing the scene over again where he's finding his clothes, running away from the cops. Then a T-1000 shows up, a new model T-1000. It's not Robert Patrick. It's not Robert Patrick. Patrick Stewart would be a great Terminator. It's not Robert Patrick. It's an actor named Lee Byung-hun. I don't know if I said his name right, but he's the T-1000. Sarah Connor saves him, like in the trailer. Come with me if you want to live. Then we get the exposition. Here's what we understand. And again, my mind is warped here because a lot of this is kind of confusing and it's not really been answered. Here's what we know. At some point, somebody from the future, not John Connor or Kyle Reese, the Terminator's files were deleted. Somebody from the future sent a Terminator, a Model 101, back in time to kill Sarah as a child back in, I think she said 1978, I think she said. And they sent a Terminator back in time that was actually an early T-1000 model, and then as a result, the Resistance, we don't know who, sent back a 101. So the T-1000 that goes back to like the 70s when Sarah Connor's a kid, and then I think she said 1970 something, I don't remember, and then they sent a Terminator back, and this Terminator pretty much raises Sarah. That T-1000 killed her family. So as a result, in this new timeline, because when that Terminator went back, they fucked up the entire thing. In this new timeline, Sarah already knows about Skynet, Judgment Day. She knows that Kyle Reese is going to be her father. Kyle does not know, but she knows. And they managed to kill the T-1000 in the first act of the movie, the one that actually came back this time. There was a previous T-1000 that came back in the 70s when she was a kid, and that was taken out by the Terminator that we all know and love, Arnold. Confused yet? Fuck, it's confusing. Then we find out that Kyle Reese, when he was thinking about that whole Genesis thing, Terminator explains that the timeline has changed. The moment that Skynet Terminator grabbed John Connor right when he was going back in time, that's what changed the timeline. And when that happened, now he's figured out that pretty much they should go to the year 2017, because in 2017 is when the Genesis program kicks off. So they go to 2017, and they run into John Connor there, who's himself. Then what happens is that the Terminator stays and hides for 33 years, just waiting to see them. He's going to take the long way, as they put it. So finally they all meet up or whatever, and then we find out that John is actually not John. He's actually a new Terminator called the T-3000. And we find out that the T-3000 is actually, what happened was that right as Kyle Reese is going back in time, the T-5000, which is a different model from Skynet. Remember, guys, Skynet always has a backup plan. The T-5000 infected the T-3000, a.k.a. John, and turned him into that. Basically, the way it works is that the T-5000 was a model that was able to create these nanorobots that go into your cells, and they manipulate your cellular structure. So John Connor, the one that goes back in time to the year 2017, Turns out he actually went back to 2014 in order to help make sure that the Genesis program got kicked off. So basically, they reversed the story. Skynet sends John Connor back in time to create Skynet. Very confusing. I feel like I'm letting you guys down in the way that I'm explaining this, because it's very, very confusing, and I may have to rewatch the movie. And the reason why it's confusing is because I understand that Kyle was stuck in like a time nexus. This is what's explained. So like he basically acquired the memories of his younger self in both timelines. So that's why he was able to know about the Genesis program. That does make sense. But what doesn't make sense is that the movie ends with everybody survives. Arnold gets a T-1000 upgrade, as I'm sure you guys saw by now. He's now a T-1000, which is awesome. That popped me like crazy. But are Sarah and Kyle supposed to go back to 84, have a kid, and then that kid's going to grow up and be John? Or are they just not going to do that and all of time has been changed? It's very confusing because it almost seems that there's going to be two timelines going on at the same time, but it doesn't make sense for that to happen. So now is John Connor, because the T-3000 gets destroyed at the end of the film, is John Connor dead, or are they going to go and make a new John Connor? See, I don't know. It's fucking confusing. So you know what? I'm just going to end the review right now. I love the film. They had some great action scenes, like I said. I might come back and do a video more about the time travel crap. And basically the end of the movie is a happy ending. It does make sense, but at the same time it really doesn't. And I hope that they answer these questions in the sequels. But I had a good time. Go see the movie. And I will come back and revisit this in a future video and talk a little bit more about it. But this is quite complex. But I had a good time watching the movie. And you should just go there, shut your brain off, and have a good night. Anyways, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I'll catch your ass down the road.